Hi, I'm Tamara from Cooperation Humboldt. Welcome to my garden in Eureka here in Northern California. Today I've got a friend Monty here from Lost Foods Nursery, and he is going to walk us through the native plants that I have planted here in my space. So here we are in the main part of the garden. You can see there's a lot going on, but today we're going to focus here on my native area.
Hi, I'm Monty Caid, and I run Lost Foods Native Plant Nursery, and we're located at Redwood Acres, and we're open Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday from noon to 6 for native plant sales. And we grow native plants that are native to Humboldt County, and we try to promote their plantings in urban areas or in our agriculture systems as well. So we study their benefits for attracting pollinators and butterflies and creating like sustainable urban areas. But we also have lots of edible native plants that can be incorporated into our agriculture systems and help increase our food diversity with plant species that have evolved here for millions of years, that are very drought tolerant and adapted to the local ecosystems and support our local ecosystems. So this plant right here next to me is a species of gum plant, and this is Grindelia stricta, but there are other species of gum plant, and it gets these really gooey, resinous, sticky, aromatic, and medicinal buds, and that's why it's called the gum plant. And the buds, and then as the buds mature, they open up into these really big yellow daisy-like flowers that are really attractive to all kinds of different pollinators and butterflies and beneficial insects. But the buds, before they flower, when they're full of this white resin, you can dry as a tea for respiratory problems or lung conditions, or you can make tinctures as well. And it's a big perennial, which can be like 3 feet by 3 feet or so, and tons of flowers. And it seems to be kind of a late bloomer where it starts blooming in the summer and it'll go till fall. And there's a mason bee right there getting it.
Oh, we scared him away.
So another one of my favorites is the checker bloom. And California has many species of checker bloom. Humboldt does as well. Some of them are rare and endangered. This one is probably the most common, and the most common in the nursery trade. It's Sidalciae malviflora. And it's a perennial, so it comes back every year and makes a bunch of these really pretty pink flowers that are super attractive to all kinds of pollinators and butterflies and beneficial insects as well. And the plant itself is also a host to different butterfly larvae in the form of like caterpillars. And it's one of our favorite edible salad greens. So before it flowers, like in late winter, early spring, or through spring till summer, it's developing a lot of really nice green leaves that are really delicious in salads, and they look really pretty on a salad plate. And then as it starts making its flower stalks, it kind of stops focusing on leaf development, and we just let it go and do its flowers and make its seeds. When these finish flowering and go to seed, and during the winter, they'll turn into dead stalks. And lots of flowers have dead stalks, and most of them become hollow as they dry. And those hollow cavities are the perfect thing that different insects need to overwinter. So checker bloom has some of the perfect size stalks for many different insects and bees to find shelters in these hollow tubes and be protected from the environment. And but there are other plants like the Angelicas that have bigger flower stalks and all different sizes for all different kinds of pollinators. So sometimes we'll leave the dead flower stalks on through the winter, and sometimes if you want it to look a little more tidy, we'll chop them off. But then we'll try to place them in like a sunny spot in the yard where the insects can still utilize that habitat. So butterflies, there's specific butterflies that use checker bloom. There's specific butterflies that use Angelicas. There are specific butterflies that use all different kinds of plants, and 95% of butterfly larvae depend on species that they co-evolved with to lay their caterpillars. And the caterpillars really can't eat any other thing except for the plants that they evolved with. So the the caterpillars that eat the checker bloom can't eat the Angelica, and they can't eat this, and they can't eat that. They need the checker bloom. So when the checker bloom is missing in the environment, the butterfly can't find a place to lay its eggs, and the caterpillars don't form. And then that caterpillars are also one of the biggest food sources for our local birds during nesting season. So the lack of food just goes all the way up the food chain when you're missing native plants in your landscape.
One of the things that I've loved about the checker bloom, I just planted it last year, and I started with, I think, maybe 5 plants or maybe 3 plants in this area, and they self-seeded so prolifically that it's just like this dense hedge of checker bloom that's so pretty. And some more over there.
Yeah, and I'd say it's kind of a later bloomer too, where it starts blooming in the summer and it'll keep blooming till fall. And so pollinators need nectar and things all through the season. So it's really important to have some species that bloom later. And I'm sure that there's a ton of things blooming earlier in the spring, and different plant species bloom different times of the year to provide the needs for their pollinator friends and companions. This is yarrow, and yarrow's a great plant. It occurs in other continents of the world as well, and I think there are different variations from Europe and Asia and North America, but they're all super awesome for beneficial insect attractors, insects and pollinators and butterflies, and they get tons of these flowers. And yarrow is a great medicinal plant. There's pages and pages on the uses of it, and it's just an awesome plant that everybody can include in the garden for medicine, and one of the best pollinator attractors. Super drought tolerant. They can spread with rhizomes.
Ours spread a little too much for our liking earlier this year, so I chopped them all down and made compost tea with them.
There you go.
You can see what they look like a little fresher there in the background. Kind of a brighter white, and the green is a little more vibrant. These ones are starting to be a little more toward the spent side.
Yeah, so that's a great way to control plants that maybe have rhizomes or spread or get too big, is like learning the uses of these plants. And either they're edible, they're medicinal, or you can use them in your compost kind of thing, but there's always some beneficial use. So then you can harvest them because they're taking up more space than you figured anyway. Then next to the yarrow, there's a young serviceberry. And serviceberry is one of my favorite native berries. It's kind of like a blueberry kind of fruit, but a larger shrub. And there are species of serviceberry that occur across the United States. This is just one of ours. There's multiple species here. And most people have never had a serviceberry, or let alone even seen them in the wild. But it's one of my favorite fruits, and I think that this could be incorporated into our agriculture systems as a drought-tolerant superfood berry. Next to it is the orange bush monkey flower, or the orange sticky bush monkey flower. And it is our only monkey flower that's kind of like a little shrub, like a little woody shrub, about 3 feet to 3 feet tall. And it gets tons of these orange tubular flowers that attract hummingbirds, and I've seen bumblebees go into them as well. And it's such a long bloomer. It like starts in spring and it'll go all the way through fall or winter. And just a nice big perennial that can take up some space and combat some weeds and give you a long-lasting bloom and supply nectar to hummingbirds and things. And under it is a little, this looks like the Oregon geranium, which is one of our native geraniums. Most of the geraniums that you see now are non-native geraniums, and they're becoming invasive, but this is one of our native ones. Gets a big, pretty pink flower, and
I think those already bloomed this year.
And I think those are earlier bloomers, but really nice little perennial. This is self-heal, and a lot of times it volunteers in people's gardens or in damaged areas. And this is the flower. This is the Angelica leaf, but the leaf of the self-heal is a little smaller and skinnier. But you can put that in your salads. And self-heal, or heals all is its common name, and there are tons of uses for this plant. Even though the leaves don't taste or smell very medicinal, it is full of these compounds that heal all kinds of things. And it's just a low little ground cover that doesn't seem to get in anybody's way. And sometimes we'll pull it out, sometimes we'll leave it, but it seems to always come back. And like I said, it's really good in salads, so you can always nibble on the leaves.
And that one's finishing up, but the blooms were really pretty when they were
and they
purple.
Attract. I've seen bumblebees and different bees go after the blooms. And actually, Healsall is another one, kind of like Yarrow, where they occur all over the northern hemisphere, in other continents as well. And North American ones have different variations than European and Asian ones, but it is a plant species that occurs all over the world, and that's the Healsall. This is one of our native Angelicas, the Angelica Henderson, or Henderson's Angelica. And here in Humboldt, we have 2 native Angelicas right on the coast, and then there's a couple native ones more inland. But they all get a really pretty umbrella kind of flower. And these umbrella flowers are really attractive to beneficial insects,
There's
butterflies.
a bee on that one that you're touching right now. Something.
And all kinds of insects can reach these flowers because they don't have deep tubes. They're all perfectly open, and they smell really good too, and they're really attractive in the garden. And Angelicas typically have a medicinal taproot, and this one specifically has a really medicinal taproot that's used for all kinds of different things. But and it smells really good as well. And it's a perennial, so it comes back year after year, maybe a little bigger, and you can make tinctures or teas out of the roots. And one typical way of like harvesting roots of a plant that's in the ground is that once it's established and mature, you could harvest some of the roots on one side of the plant, leaving the other half of the roots intact, and the plant will survive that. And especially if you do it towards the dormant season in the fall or winter, which would be typically when you would harvest the roots anyway. And like I said before, Angelica specifically hosts specific butterfly larvae too. So in the native plant area or the native plant garden, we typically do not freak out about caterpillars. It's actually kind of what you want. You want the caterpillars to be there because that means that you have lured in the adult butterfly that found its host plant. And typically you don't see an infestation of caterpillars because those caterpillars also in turn feed all the birds and the local wildlife. So you might find some leaf damage or find a caterpillar here or there, but the plant still stays super healthy and happy because they've evolved into a relationship to sacrifice some leaves for caterpillars, and there's plenty of healthy leaves that still exist.
I'm going to show the Angelica leaves a little better. I'm not getting it in that shot.
Yeah,
These
great.
leaves here, they're actually really pretty. And this is what those flower heads look like before they open. Kind of cool.
So next to the Angelica is yellow dock. So this is a European herb and very medicinal. It gets big leaves. You can use these in cooking, but the main medicinal part is the taproot. So it makes like a big yellow taproot, kind of like a branching carrot. And they sell this in the herb store. It's really good for purifying the blood, and yeah, it's a great blood purifier, bitter, liver stimulant, all that stuff. And there are native docks in America and in Humboldt. And this one is one that comes up in people's yards, and you can totally pull it out and use it as medicine or eat it in your salad. The bigger they get, the harder they are to pull because the roots get bigger and bigger, but it's just a bigger medicinal root. This looks like a variation of the orange sticky monkey flower, and I think it's from Southern California, and it's either a native to Southern California or it's been hybridized to get these colors, but they do come in a variation of flower shapes and sizes, and there are a bunch of native species throughout California. But yeah, so a native Californian plant, but maybe not native to Humboldt, but really unique color and flower pattern. So this is yellow dock before it gets its seed and flower stalks, but it's an example of the nice tender greens that you could totally add to salads or soups. And there it is, another brand new yellow dock in the garden for free. You didn't plant it. This looks like the showy milkweed, and in Humboldt, I think we have 2 or 3 native milkweeds. This one gets a really beautiful flower, and most people are learning that milkweeds are the host plant for monarch butterflies, which they use to lay their caterpillars on. So we are promoting people to plant milkweeds all over the country to help save our struggling monarch butterflies that depend on the milkweed. But like I said before, 95% of all butterflies are in the same position as the monarch. So it's not just milkweeds that we need to add to the landscape. It's checker blooms, it's Angelicas, and it's all the other species that different butterflies need. And there's thousands of different butterfly species that depend on thousands of different host plants. But milkweed is a great example of the host plant needs that we are realizing as a society, but we're just leaving out all the other plant species. So below the milkweed, we have this low-growing ceanothus species. And California is a hot spot for ceanothus. There's like 70 species in the state, and like 69 of them only occur in California, or some crazy amount like that. So California has so many different varieties of ceanothus. Most of them, or all of them, are evergreen. They get this really pretty, shiny evergreen leaf. This one looks like a low-growing ground cover. And as it matures or whenever it flowers, usually they are full of flowers that attract tons of wildlife, or tons of pollinators. And then they make seeds that attract wildlife too. But ceanothus hosts a bunch of different caterpillars from our local butterflies, so it's a great ornamental, it's considered like an ornamental super drought tolerant. Once they're established, you don't have to water at all, and it is really popular in our local landscapes. So it's a great native that is actually included in some of our urban landscape developments.
Thanks for joining us in the garden. Be sure to check out Cooperation Humboldt and Lost Foods on the internet and on Facebook. In case you noticed during the video that there was a lot of noise from crows cawing, I'm here to show you the reason for the noise. It's a little baby crow, and we recently learned that crows, before they can fly, will hang out on the ground for up to 2 weeks, and their parents are nearby, and they are going to freak out if anybody gets too close to the baby. So you can hear them up in the tree right now. Can't see them, but I can hear them up there. And they've been yelling at us all the time while we're outside. Bonus baby crow. Oh, where did he go? He's hiding back there. Bye-bye.